By July 2026, a single hardware company reached a roughly $930 billion market cap, driven by a 611% stock surge in 1 year. This chart compares operating margins across the world's most profitable global brands. At 72%, this company eclipses the profitability of both Apple and Microsoft, making it the most lucrative hardware manufacturer alive. Yet the company supplying the high-bandwidth hardware required by the artificial intelligence boom, SK Hynix, spent an entire decade being priced by global markets as completely worthless. To understand how they captured the AI hardware crown, we have to look past the current financial metrics. We have to examine a brutal corporate resurrection. The original flaw was planted in the 1990s. Back then, Hyundai Electronics was determined to take the memory chip crown from Samsung. To do it, they financed massive fabrication plants entirely with aggressive debt. That balance sheet became a liability in 1997. The Asian financial crisis triggered a catastrophic currency collapse, taking down Korean banks and highly leveraged conglomerates in rapid sequence. The International Monetary Fund arrived with a strict restructuring mandate, known as the Big Deal. The government concluded Korea had too many chipmakers and forced Hyundai Electronics into a mandatory merger with LG Semiconductor. This chart shows the immediate fallout of that forced merger. The new entity inherited over $9 billion in combined debt, at the exact bottom of a memory market down cycle. By 2001, the stock was falling 84%, forcing them to strip away the Hyundai family name. They became Hynix, a ward of its creditors. The state can mandate a merger to keep a failing company breathing, but it cannot cure underlying financial rot. From 2001 to 2011, analysts wrote their obituaries. But while creditor committees were busy selling off furniture and assets to manage the bailouts, the core engineering teams in Icheon kept building new fabrication lines. This graph illustrates the brutal physics of the memory market. Prices crash every few years. The only absolute rule in this industry is that whoever can survive the crushing bottoms will automatically inherit the next peak. In 2011, creditors finally tried to sell the company. Nobody bid. Then SK Group chairman Chae Tae-won stepped in, paying roughly $3 billion for a 21% stake in the zombie corporation. The market laughed. But Chae realized he was acquiring a battle-hardened engineering core that had survived 3 down cycles intact. He timed his entry precisely 1 year before the market turned. With capital finally secured, the newly renamed SK Hynix made a strange technological bet in 2013. They partnered with AMD to rethink the physical layout of memory hardware. Instead of laying standard DRAM chips flat, side by side on a motherboard, they developed high-bandwidth memory, or HBM. This involved stacking the memory dies vertically, layer upon layer, to build a high-density tower of silicon. To make this architecture function, they engineered thousands of microscopic through-silicon vias, tiny vertical channels piercing through and fusing the stacked layers together to allow massive amounts of data to travel instantly. For years, this technology was ignored by the broader market. HBM shipped as a niche product for highly specialized accelerators and was largely dismissed as an expensive experiment. But that decade of ignored, unprofitable iteration allowed SK Hynix to perfect a complex manufacturing process before anyone else realized it was necessary. When large language models arrived, the industry hit a memory wall. A powerful GPU is useless if it spends most of its time waiting for data to arrive from the storage pool. Suddenly, the entire AI industry developed an insatiable need for one thing: memory bandwidth. SK Hynix was already there. Being first to market with HBM3 made them the primary supplier for NVIDIA's H100, the exact chip that powers the modern AI era. They rapidly moved from HBM3 to HBM3E, and by September 2025, they established the world's first mass production system for the next generation, HBM4. By holding a near monopoly on high-bandwidth technology, the former zombie corporation positioned itself as the most strategic choke point in the global AI supply chain. They are now using that leverage to rethink the economics of their business through long-term agreements. This graph models the impact of these contracts. By locking in demand years in advance, SK Hynix is engineering the volatility out of its own balance sheet, converting a wild commodity business into steady, subscription-like revenue. The crown is still heavily contested. Samsung is aggressively qualifying its own HBM4 modules, and emerging entrants like China's CXMT are rapidly expanding their wafer capacity. But SK Hynix faces these threats from a defensive fortress. They report demand exceeding their capacity for the next 3 years, backed by a massive net cash position that didn't exist just 2 years ago. Financial engineering can buy time, but an untouchable engineering core makes a company sovereign. SK Hynix endured 3 market collapses and a decade of bankruptcy to prove that mere survival is the most ruthless strategy of all.